The largest air battle in modern history. That's what we're gonna react to today. My name is Max Villman. I'm a former fighter pilot in the Swedish Air Force, and let's go. Yeah, in the early beginnings of May, India and Pakistan fought one of the largest modern air battles in history. Over 125 modern fighter aircraft engaged in one battle. And it's not a dogfight, as several media outlets have said. A dogfight is typically when you go within visual range and fight each other. This was a BVR fight, or beyond visual range fight, and it was some serious, interesting things that happened that we really want to dig into. And Pakistan have released a press conference where they go through the events as they see it. Of course, India has other ideas of what happened, and this is all part of the propaganda war. But before we go into the press conference and see what happens there, let's check out some of the key material players here. And one that gets overlooked a lot is the Swedish Saab Area radar station, a flying radar, flying AVAX, airborne warning and control system. Airborne early warning, whatever you want to call it. And in here you have fighter controller positions, you have a flying radar station, which makes sure that you can keep track on from low level altitudes to high level on what happens. And you can read more about the area here. Pakistan also have bought Chinese flying radar stations, so Pakistan has really employed seriousness in getting airborne early warning and control, which I think was quite a good choice. But what's even more interesting is all the Chinese equipment that the PAF have bought from China. The PL-15 is the Chinese missile. The PL-15E is the export version with a range of over 90 nautical miles or 145 kilometers if you're into European ways of measuring things. And those were employed by the Chengdu J-10. The J-10 is the Chinese equivalent of F-16, modern F-16 or a Swedish Gripen for that matter. It looks like a merge between an F-16 and a Gripen. So this is the first time that Chinese military fighters have been involved in a conflict, even though they were flown by Pakistan pilots. And just to show you that Pakistan is moving a lot towards China, away from the West, and cooperating with them, is that they intend to buy the J-35, the Chinese version of the F-35 basically. And the reason for this is, of course, that India and China are involved in a conflict a lot, and Pakistan, their biggest enemy is India as well. So it's basically your enemy is my enemy type of thing. And this was interesting because the Pakistanis claim that they have shot down Rafales, obviously very modern Western generation 4.5 fighters. So this was a lot of talk about on the internet. So let's look at the press conference, and I'll give
strategic vision and the direction that he gave to the Air Force. On what happened and how did it happen. This is the Indian side, this is the Pakistani side. We had some gaps in the north, center, south, in AEW.
And just to give you the picture here, this is Pakistan. This is India over here, and over here you have Kashmir, the disputed region, and you will see here Pakistani fighters, Indian fighters, and also a key player here is this symbol here. It's difficult to see, we'll see it soon, but this is an airborne early warning and control track. So probably here they had at least one Saab area airborne, which makes sure that they have a good sense of what's going on the Indian side. And what we will see that the Pakistanis did is they kept most of their fighters on ground for as long as possible, and then scrambled when they saw that the Indians were building up for a strike package. And this is typically what we Westerners want to do if we have DCA, Defensive Combat Air, is that we want to keep our fighters on ground as long as possible to preserve fuel and combat effectiveness. For the pilots, of course, you can go to the toilet, you can eat something, you can drink, you can stay, you don't have to sit in the cockpit. Perhaps you even sit in the cockpit, but you keep your level of fighter readiness high, and you don't conserve, you don't use any fuel, and then you scramble when you see a build-up, and that's exactly what they did.
To support it. And the IF fighters started an initial build-up that was picked up from the north and the center across IB at 0010 hours.
So 10 past
and
midnight.
By that time, PAF had initiated its response within 2 minutes. By 0012, our response was activated. The IF started to get their fighters get airborne in large numbers. By the time it has come to 12:30, we were pretty sure that this is going to be the day and the time to knock some sense into these guys once again. So
So they started seeing build-up of Indian fighters at 10 past midnight, and then at half past midnight, 00:30, they have decided that this is probably going to be the night that they attack. And obviously, this all started after some terrorists from the Muslim terrorists basically attacked Indian tourists. And from that on, probably we can see that the Pakistani Air Force was in high readiness and had their airborne early warning control online, and then readiness on ground, basically most of them. And now when they saw that the Indians were scrambling a lot of fighters, they decided to scramble their own fighters, basically. And what makes this possible is, of course, airborne early warning and control, and also, you don't see it on this map, but probably ground radar stations as well, and other sensors as well.
So we commenced our multi-domain operations, the pride and joy and the new concept of war that we have. This is the picture that...
Here you can see more clearly the airborne early warning and control track, which makes sure that you can maintain control over here. And probably there were more. I don't think they put up everything here. But so maybe 2 airborne early warning control, and they, I think, have a total of 9, so they can keep some on ground. When they get out of fuel, you can start new ones, etc. And when they saw the Indians scramble, they scrambled their own fighters as a way of deterring the Indians to attack. And what's really impressive here is that the Indian got 60 up to 72 fighters airborne, amongst them 14 Rafales, which is a lot, and the Pakistanis scrambled 42. So just getting all those airborne at the same time coordinated is it's a complex task. That's what we practice when you go to red flags, etc., etc. So a very, very complex task that they managed to do on both sides. And also electronic ID or IMO is basically, as soon as a fighter opens their radar, you can electronic ID them which type they are, because every fighter type has their own radar signature basically, and also you can interrogate using your own radars as well. So that makes sure that they can monitor which are MiG-15s, MiG-29s, which are Rafales, which are Su-30s that Indians have as well. So that makes it possible for the Pakistanis to see what type of fighters are where.
Getting jumbled up, we have huge number of IF fighters that are stacked up in azimuth and vertical all across, and the PF DCA response is in position. The complete package, when it gets into shape, it is on 4 axes, and we perceive that they will have 4 incisions just to embroil. Up to 60 aircraft, including 14 Rafales, were electronically ID'd by all through our electromagnetic operational environment. We call it the EMO. So by the time they were in air, we had sorted out and contracted all fighters and accounted for. The 60 number.
So that's important that they had a contract and sort. So basically what you do when you see all these different types of attack axes, you give different parts of the area of operations and different parts of the formations from the enemy. You contract them and you sort them in between you. So not everyone has to keep tabs of everything, because that's impossible. So basically what you have is you have a master fighter controller, so the big boss fighter controller on ground or airborne, and he has fighter controllers below him, and he gives area of responsibilities and tells the other fighter controllers that in turn control the fighters, like, you guys, you target these guys, you guys, you target these guys, you're responsible to keep tracks in this area, etc., as a way of sorting. And the fighter controllers, their main task is to make sure that there's nothing that slips through. So every Indian fighter in this case is accounted for and sorted. Someone has eyes on them and is responsible to make sure that they don't threaten us.
That augmented to 72 through their scrambles that kept on coming just to reinforce and supplement and to saturate the air defense. They thought they could do that for the Pakistani ADG, air defense ground environment. The complete DCA package response by Pakistani side was also there. We had 42 high-tech aircraft on our side. And
42 high-tech, so I interpret that as generation 4, 4.5. They have F-16s, Cs and Ds, and they have the J-10s and their own built fighters as well. And so I think that's what he means by high-tech aircraft in this case.
And the strategy was to have force concentration in our selected AOR and fight at our own strength. PF fighters ensured Pakistan's air sovereignty, and because of that, we first rerouted all civilian traffic that was about to go from Lahore, Islamabad, and this area, because we thought that this is going to be the hot plate. So we.
Yeah, so they rerouted the civilian traffic. A lot of the Pakistani big cities are on the border towards India. You don't want civilian airliners flying through a high, like a combat zone. So that was probably a wise decision.
Wanted safety for all the civil airliners. When they had seen this kind of a strong defense on our side, they resorted to launching their air-to-ground weapons while being CIS frontier. And as soon
So what he says there is when the Indians saw that the Pakistanis were ready for them, they launched their weapons on their side of the border. I don't know if that's true. I think maybe that was the plan all along. So the Indians, as far as what I've been able to look into, is that they launched Scalp, so basically cruise missiles, Taurus cruise missiles, but French ones, that has standoff ranges of at least 300 kilometers, so well beyond any range of ground-based air defenses or fighter missiles. So they launched them with big standoff ranges, but they also launched, as far as I can tell, JDAMs, the French JDAMs, hammers. They typically have a standoff of something around 50 kilometers or 30 miles, something like that, which puts them well into range from ground-based air defenses and also the Pakistani fighters. And what he says there is that he launched them on the Indian side of the border, all of these weapons. And I think that could be probably a way of not escalating things from the Indian side. But what he doesn't mention is that if the Indians fired air-to-air missiles at all, which I don't think they did, I think they only launched their ground attack munitions.
As soon as they had launched the weapons, we could ID that instantly. And the chief of the air staff, as I mentioned, he was in the COC. He has been there for a couple of nights. I have seen him there. So when I said that he spearheaded and he led from the front, he really did that. And he changed the contract. We were given the rules of engagement first to deter. And as soon as this thing happened, we changed our rules of the game in the air. From deter to assure kill, deny own loss.
So what he's saying there is quite, it's a key thing. Like when they saw that the Indians launched air-to-ground weapons, they changed the rules of engagement. So in between, before they launched their weapons, they had the ROEs to deter. So basically, weapons tight, you're not allowed to shoot unless you're shot upon. Basically, just to deter the Indians from attacking. But when that failed, the Indians attacked anyway. They changed the rules of engagement to actually being able to fire upon Indian aircraft without getting your own losses. So basically, they changed that mid-air. And I think what happened is that the Pakistani Air Force launched their own air-to-air weapons first before the Indians did, and that sort of created this momentum, and that's why I think that the kills are quite credible, and perhaps not everyone, but at least that they got some kills because they probably fired air-to-air weapons before the Indians knew that the Pakistanis had changed their own rules of engagement.
PF strategy changed. We had a plan. We thought that Indians, the last time they said that they would have Rafales and they could have created any difference. So we targeted their center of gravity and the Rafales. That's why you see good numbers for that. We would have had more numbers, but we showed restraint. Ladies and gentlemen, the thing about this whole playtime was this thing lasted for more than an hour.
So this whole thing lasted more than an hour, which is quite impressive. Typically you have like 20-30 minutes if you go on full afterburner or full like military power. So that basically, it seems like they went up there to combat air patrol and everyone had sort of a grind where they didn't go full speed or fired missiles immediately. So it took a while before the Indians actually attacked and before the Pakistanis' responses. That's what that tells me.
With so many large number of aircraft, so many large number of aircraft on both sides, with so many grinds and the flow of the BVR, the modern warfare has changed so much that the long stick, the employment is if you don't shoot, you get shot. So that
the long stick is basically the long-range AMRAAMs, the long-range PL-15 missiles that they have, etc. So you need to shoot when you go back and forth here. Otherwise, if they only shoot and you don't shoot back, you have now no missile to protect you, and that's what he means by that BVR, beyond visual range combat.
That is why the art was to employ them optimally, and that was a big challenge for us. That is why I say that it has never happened before. These are the locations.
And I think it's true there. This is the first time we've seen like big numbers of modern jets fighting each other, Generation 4 and Generation 4.5, against each other in a BVR fight.
With the range bearing, electronic ID, that we think that we are sure that we have shot, a MiG-29 was shot 8 miles from LOC, bearing 24320 nautical miles from Srinagar. A Su-30 was shot 192.
So basically this is where they claim to have shot down 3 Rafales, 1 MiG-29, 1 Su-30 and 1 UAV with bearings and range. I think these are Pakistani cities. And you see all of them are on their side of the Indian side of the border, where they haven't entered the Pakistani airspace. I don't know if these are true or not. They also published some audio recordings from a Rafale, allegedly from a Rafale formation, where one of the wingmen says he sees something explode and he doesn't get a hold of his wingman. I don't know if that's true or not. It's difficult to tell, but we will see what the Indians say. And of course, there's a lot of fog of war. There's a lot of propaganda going back and forth here. But one thing that's for sure is that this is the first time we have seen Chinese modern aircraft, modern missiles, F-16s, and the Pakistani fighters versus Su-30s, MiG-29s and Rafales, like modern Western aircraft. So that's very, very interesting. But I think our key takeaway here is the airborne early warning and control. So area or equivalent is super important. Also the flexibility to change ROEs mid-air. And sort of, I think that gave the Pakistanis the initiative in this fight. I don't know if the Indians fired back before they were fired upon, but I think that what gave the Pakistanis initiative. And also, of course, fog of war. We don't know exactly what happened, but it's super interesting, and I hope we get more information about this fight because it's very important. I don't think this says anything about the Rafales being worse than the Chinese fighters, something like that. Obviously, the skill of the pilot involved, the rules of engagement, basically the handcuffs that you give pilots, that creates a big part. I think if the Indians would have wanted to do this, they would definitely cross the Pakistani border. They would have fired a lot of air-to-air missiles to give there a lot of time to use their air-to-ground weapons, and then they could go back and be protected by ground-based air defense, something like that. I think this time they didn't have the rules of engagement to fire air-to-air missiles at all before the Pakistanis did. I think that played a very big part here. And I don't think this tells us anything about like that the Rafales are worse than the Chinese fighters or anything like that. But that's always what people want to hear. But it's more about pilot skill. It's more about the setup, the initiative, the rules of engagement, the SA, the situational awareness. That I think the Pakistanis had good situational awareness. That's what this briefing tells me. So very, very interesting to see, and let's see if there's more information being available. But I'll end it here. Thank you so much. Please give me a thumbs up, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also if you want to buy me a coffee, there's a link for Ko-Fi to support the channel in the description below. And please comment here if I've missed anything down below, if you think there's anything I've missed. But that's all for today, and until next time, as always, fly safe.